You're recording now, Naria? Excellent, beautiful. I will introduce myself. My name is Bria Rolfe. I am Derm's co-worker at Yakvik. I am half comms and half Rainbow Project. So half of my time I'm managing our graphic design and our Twitter and stuff. And then the rest of the time I'm helping on the Hey grants and with the Hey partners. I use they, them pronouns. Currently I'm on Wurundjeri country, and yeah, I'm sharing a room with 2 or 3 cats right now. So if there's any weird noises or any cats appearing, that's working from home, I guess. I might, yeah, handball on.
Naria?
Yeah.
Hi everyone, I'm Naria. My pronouns are she, her. I'm zooming in today from beautiful Wurundjeri country. I just want to acknowledge the elders past, present and emerging. I am here today just to help out in all the admin and the back end stuff. I work with Bria and at Yakvik. It's saying that if you have any questions or anything, feel free to use the chat. I'll be monitoring that, and we'll have a Q&A session at the end which I'll be able to talk to as well. Yeah.
Jamie.
Hi everyone, my name's Jamie. I use she, her pronouns. I work for Rainbow Health Victoria, and part of that role is coordinating Rainbow Network. I am zooming in from Gumbaynggirr country in New South Wales. Yeah, and I have supported many Hay grant recipients. I've been witness to some of the incredible work that's come out of this project. I've been involved with the Hay projects since before it started. I was involved in the pilot for what then became the Hay project. And I have written a few successful grant applications of my own in my time. I hope I can help out.
Thanks, Jamie. Rochelle?
Hey everyone, my name is Rochelle. I use she, her pronouns. I work at Maroondah City Council in the Youth and Children's Services team, and I coordinate all of the youth programs and services. And I'm here today to chat to you about some of our successful Hay grant applications, and yeah, just give you a bit of insight into our experience with the Hay grants.
Thanks very much. Meg?
Hi everyone, my name is Meg and I'm the Youth Coordinator with the Wellington Shire Council, which is down in Gippsland. I'm here on the land of the Gunai-Kurnai people, and I'm also here just to give you a little bit of insight into the Hay grants that we've applied for, successful and unsuccessful, I think I might tap into. Thanks.
Thanks, Meg. And Rosemary?
Hi, I'm Rosemary. I use she, her pronouns. I'm from Hume City Council out in Melbourne's north. Also here to share some information about our successful Hay grant applications in the past. Also with me today is Carla. So we're going to share our presentation. So if it's okay, I might introduce Carla as well.
Please do.
Hi everyone, I'm Carla. I'm on Wurundjeri country at the moment. Nice to see you all here. Yeah, as Rosemary said, I'm going to present with her about just our reflections on successful grants, and I will speak to you all a bit later. Thanks.
Thank you. And for anybody that's arrived late, my name's Derm Ryan. I'm the manager of Yakvik Rural, which incorporates the Hay program. Hay, of course, stands for Healthy Equal Youth. I use he, him pronouns, and I am on Wurundjeri country as well. So I'd like to welcome everybody here, including any of our Hay partners who might be here, previous grant recipients, and of course, any LGBTIQA+ young people and their supporters who might be tuning in to pick up some tips on how to write a successful Hay grant. We might go to the next slide, please, Naria. I'd like to commence by acknowledging that we are all meeting on Aboriginal land. I'd like to pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging, and welcome any Aboriginal people who are joining us today. This image is of Bunjil, and it's a sculpture that was created at the Koori Youth Summit in 2017 by a range of young people. And into the wings, they put their hopes and dreams for the future. One of the reasons I like to really use this particular image is because Bunjil is a really important part of Aboriginal creation stories here in Victoria. And Bunjil had 2 rules for people when they were visiting someone else's country. And those rules were that they respect country when they're on the country, and also that they look after the children of the lands that they might be visiting. And I think that that really is a very important message in these days of child safe and making sure that we're giving young people and children the best opportunities in life, and that we're nurturing them regardless of their identities and finding ways to include them and their experiences in the work that we do. So that's just a little bit of Bunjil's story there. We might move on, and I might hand over to Briar, who's going to give us a little bit of a history or a bit of an update on what the Hay Grants are.
Thank you. It's very good to see everyone. We have so many participants. I'm feeling smug, feeling prepared. So the Hay Grants are 10 years old this year. They've been running for quite a while. They're sort of spun out of a Victorian government initiative for suicide prevention early on, like a decade ago. They identified that like queer kids, LGBTIQA+ kids were at risk, and they wanted to bring about community initiatives to support those young people, because obviously, like, they recognize there's wisdom in the community that is not necessarily the same wisdom that's in government. So if you can fund community groups to kind of do what they want to do, you can kind of take care of people in a more cohesive way. So every year we've had a Hay Grants round. We've given out very different amounts over the time, and now we've settled on about 10 grand and about 10 grants. Sometimes people ask for more, sometimes people ask for less. But yeah, at the moment, that's what's been most effective for us. Yeah, so we've got 2 categories. We've got our youth-led grants and our social connectedness grants. And essentially our vision for that is that sometimes young people might have slightly more innovative ideas, or like slightly like wackier ideas, and we want to make it as possible for them to go through the process of applying for grants, as long as they have some kind of organization supporting them. And then social connectedness grants, which generally more tried and true, usually what councils go through, bigger organizations when they have identified a need in the community to connect the community to each other. So yeah, our big focus is the grants are anything that increase the social connectedness and mental health and well-being of LGBTIQA+ young people in that area. No matter how they do that, it can be statewide, it can be local, it could be, your cricket club, as long as it's like nurturing kind of that community and whatever other community might kind of be part of it. I'm looking at our slides. Do you reckon, how do you feel I'm doing, Derm? Is that a pretty good overview?
Yep, probably just good to highlight that the grants are offered in partnership with by the Victorian government. Mm-hmm. And to date, we've handed out 99. We've supported 99 organisations with $1.1 million of funding to date. So it's been very consistent, and the support from the Victorian government has enabled this program to continue. Yeah.
And it's ongoing funding now as well, which is very exciting. So yeah, we're going to keep rolling. This year we're going to crack 100 grants. Very exciting.
Yeah. So look, that's just a little bit of the history and how the grants are offered. This year, maybe this is a good place for us to start talking about what happened in 2020 and how we think that in the next 12 months, grants need to have what we're calling a COVID-19 adaptability within them. So obviously when the pandemic started earlier this year, many people who were funded under the in the current year's round of funding wrote to us and said all of our activities were going to be face-to-face. They were about putting on an event. They were about this. They were about that. And we've allowed people to roll over their grant this year, and we'll be working with organisations around what that looks like into the first half of next year. And if that's your organisation, please don't panic, because Briar and I are not panicked about this. And we will be working with people over the next few months to go just to check in and say, so how are you going? What have you been able to do? Are there possibilities for you to be able to adapt and change what you were originally going to do? Or are we best off waiting until such time as you can do that event? Because obviously if you were hosting a rainbow ball and you were going to bring 80 or 100 young people from all around regional Victoria together to celebrate, then that is going to be much harder to do in an online environment. Although personally speaking, I recently got married online, so I think that, you know, a whole range of things are possible. But enough of that. What we are encouraging people to think about this year is to use the Victorian Government's roadmap to opening as a guide to think about what sort of restrictions might need to be included into their program of activities going forward. So think about what will physical distance look like for your target group and for the activities that you might have planned in your application. How will you communicate what the new guidelines are for people and ensure that they need to adhere to that to make those activities inclusive, but also safe for everybody? How will the activities change if there's a local increase in COVID-19 cases? So I'm particularly thinking here in the fact that Victoria is a good example because we opened up for a little while and then things changed quite rapidly, and both the city and rural towns went into lockdown. So think about if that happened, what would that mean for your program of activities under this grants round, and how might you be able to adapt activities so that they were still able to run? Think about things like, you know, will technology necessarily work for your target group? Is the technology accessible? Is the equipment available for the young people that you're working with? And I'm thinking here particularly about people that might come from disadvantaged backgrounds where there might not be 4 or 5 computers available for them to be able to log on and attend some of the things that you're doing. Additionally, think about coverage for the internet. We do know that for many rural and regional communities, and for some people in the city, the internet is not always 100% reliable and can be really challenging for people. So there's some of the things you might want to think about in terms of your adaptability. And also think about how you're going to keep people updated with any changes or adaptations that might need to be made during the life of the program that you're running. So again, I would encourage people to use that roadmap to reopening as a bit of a guide to thinking about how they might want to be working in a sort of, you know, a pandemic period. And the reason I say that is because having worked in public health and community health for quite a while. Without a vaccine, things are subject to change. And I don't know how long a vaccine will be, but I would be surprised if it's in the next 12 months. And then you've got scale-up issues. So it might be a while that we're in spending in uncertain times, and it'd be good for you to be able to think about that and adapt that. Briar, did you want to pick up on anything else there before we move into the key points of the selection criteria?
Yeah, I was going to say one of the really big advantages of the Hay network as a whole and our networks like as Hay partners and in Yakvik is there's a lot of expertise for things like this. So if you are coming up to your grant, you've got a really good idea, but you're like, how do I extend this? You know, I want to talk exclusively to young people who don't have computers in rural areas, whatever your like hopes and dreams are. There's a lot of expertise built into the network. And so there's always going to be like people who can help like troubleshoot during the life of your grant. Derm and I are always, we're like emailable during your applications, and Hay partners in your area will, I'm committing them to this now, be very helpful if you have questions about Hay or the grants or how the partners work, and just really good sources of expertise for interacting with like young people, community, and Yakvik Rural has some really good tips on communicating with people in rural areas. So yeah, there's a lot of expertise out there if you're like, I don't know how to convert my project to something that could be like resilient in COVID situations. Like that expertise is available, and definitely someone can help you out, or we can help connect you to someone who can help you out. Yeah.
Great. Yeah. So Naria, we might move on to the selection criteria for the key points on youth-led. Fantastic. So look, I would encourage everybody to go to the Yakvik website and really have a good look at the information there on the Hay grants. There's a guideline available. There's a really comprehensive document that Briar spent a lot of time pulling together based on the feedback from the panels and the Hay grant and previous applicants over what is the most useful information to supply to people. But this is just a really quick snapshot. The best information is on that website, and those documents are very, very helpful. So the youth-led grants, there's $10,000 available. And I have to say, it's really important that you make it clear that young people are involved at every step of the process with a youth-led initiative. It's one of the great bugbears for the young people that sit on the panel is that it is not clear to them when things are listed as a youth grant. As a youth-led grant, and sometimes it's about making it really important. We might just go back to the previous slide, please, Naria. So really important, because that first issue, the first point there about how young people will be engaged and involved with the project is 60% of the scoring at the selection process. The other key points there are around how the project will promote mental health and well-being of LGBTIQA plus young people. And think here about, you know, specifically what's the impact that you have seen or young people are informing you or raising with you about COVID, or about how COVID might be impacting the issues that they're seeing in their specific area. Or if it's a specific cohort of people. So it might be a group of young people with disabilities. How has COVID impacted their mental health, and how will this program assist that particular cohort? The next point is around what the problems or need in the community that the project will assess. So think about how will you be doing a needs assessment, and how will you represent that you've got a good handle on the issue that's being addressed here, and that young people are part of the response to that needs assessment. And then also, what measures will be used to determine the project's success. So looking at making it really measurable. So if you're going to put on an event, if you're going to have 50 people come to the event, how are you actually, is that a marker of success for you? Additionally, really important that you obtain 2 letters of support to attach to your application. We often get applications that say, we're going to work with X organisation, but there's not a letter of support from X organisation, which indicates to us that you haven't reached out, that you haven't done any planning with X organisation, and they might be unaware that you want to partner with them. So, is there anything else that you would add there, Briar? And I might get you to take the lead when we move into the social connectedness one to go through the points. But is there anything? Yep.
Yeah, I think I've had a few questions in my inbox already from people who are concerned about the problem or need and the measures of success questions. We know as Hey Partners that sometimes statistics for anything to do with the hashtag gays are pretty thin on the ground. We're not on the census. It can be kind of difficult to have like tangible statistics for your area, especially if you're kind of new to working in that specific area. If you're like, I don't know how many, young people are doing painting in my council shire, like that's fine. Anecdotal evidence is still evidence. We believe in that, community has expertise, that young people and like queer people have lived experience. So if it's something that you have observed or something that young people are telling you is important, then we're going to count that just as much. If you do have statistics, like I love them, make sure they're relevant. Don't quote American statistics. Don't count broader Australian statistics that go to an up to 70-plus-year-old bracket. Make sure that they're like as relevant to the community as possible. Yeah, I think, yeah, it should be like, generally people kind of know what's needed. We just need you to demonstrate that.
I might just add here that the previous writing themselves in report or private lives report is really good research to have a look at. Additionally, any of the local submissions or even the YACVIC submission to the Royal Commission into Mental Health would be good things as a bit of a guide for you if you're wanting to link it to that. And if you're able to then articulate that and link it into young people are mentioning that this is an issue impacting on their mental health, then that's great.
There's really a really good Equality Australia survey about COVID specifically as well. And so like, even if you can feel like Equality Australia said that this community was affected the most because there's high smoking risk or whatever. Yeah, there is research. I should say it's not all doom and gloom.
Great. Shall we move on to social connectedness?
Yes.
Nuria, thank you.
So this is probably the broader proportion of the grants that we receive. So this is for projects that connect your community. We have the same questions for both of these categories of grants, but we weight them differently. So you'll notice here how young people will be engaged and involved is 40% instead of 60%. So you kind of want to equally match it with it supporting and promoting mental health, and community need is a lot bigger here because we're assuming for these grants that you are not necessarily a young person who's applying. You have a cohort of young people in mind, you're working with them maybe, but it's deliberately designed to address a problem in the community. Again, we've got the same, like you demonstrate that more strongly in this application than in the youth-led, but you still got to have measures to back it up. And again, they've still got to be involved. Young people have got to be attending. At YACVIC, we define young people as roughly from 12 to 25. For the Hay grants, we do not put hard limits on it. As long as you're targeting an age group that is mostly young people, if you've got some 30-year-olds attending, your night classes or whatever, that's okay. If it's going to tangentially affect other communities with like a parent support program or something as part of your core support of young people, that's okay. We just want to make sure that young people are the focus, if that makes sense.
And there's no lower age limit to
Yes.
the work of the Healthy Equal Youth program, either in the grants or in the partners. So we don't have a lower age limit. So working with young people who are under the age of 12 is not a problem for this round of grants.
Yeah. And would love to see more work in primary schools, early childhood, that sort of thing, which does also lead us to, if you're interacting with under 18s, you need a working with children's check. You can put that in your budget, or you can, if you're a volunteer, it's a very negligible cost, but we're extremely keen on child safe, and it is a question in our grants applications. So we will, if you're like, oh no, we're just going to throw all of these people in a room together and there's no supervision and no one has working with children's checks, we will probably be raising our eyebrows at that grant. Yeah,
we might keep moving forward, and I'll ask Jamie to join us for this next bit of the discussion.
Yeah.
And we might change slides. And Jamie, did you want to sort of just give a bit of I guess, an overview? I wanted to point out to people that I think using SMART goals or SMART objectives is a really great way to be thinking about framing the information that you provide us. So the more specific, is it measurable? Is it obtainable? Is it relevant? And is it time-based? So relevant might be that you are an individual and you want to go to a conference. We don't fund individuals, so it's not going to be relevant for this round of grants, and we would knock it back. But if people can think about using, addressing those topics within their grant, that would be great. Jamie, you had a couple of things about how people might be able to think about being clear.
Yeah, sure. I mean, my notes kind of relate a lot to attainable and relevant. So, you know, I think this has been touched on a little bit already, but I think look at what's already being done and try not to duplicate that. And the way that you do that is by talk to us. I mean, in Victoria, we are so unique in that we have an LGBTI youth sector. We really do. Hundreds of people are employed in this sector, unlike in any other state. And we work so collaboratively and, you know each other. And so definitely when you have your great idea, or when you work with young people and they come up with a great idea, I think, you know, check in. Although I guess another point there is that, for example, you know, -18 do run formals and large youth events. Many grants have applied for similar events in regional Victoria to meet another need, to meet, etc. So it doesn't mean that you can't do a similar thing or the same thing somewhere else. You need to tell us that you know that someone else has done it before, and that the reason that you might want to duplicate it elsewhere. I think don't overpromise. Really, this is such a trap in grant writing, to say we are going to offer you the world for $10,000. You are not, and that is okay. So almost a rule of thumb is to, you know, start with your grand vision and cut it in half. We would much rather see you do something realistic and do it really well, than to overpromise and under-deliver. And that's, yeah, we know this, you know, this is our experience too. So you don't have to be worried that you have to promise the world for $10,000. Yeah, so, you know, kind of keep it simple and do it well. Do a needs assessment. So relevant, you know, we need to know, and Briar's talks about this in terms of the evidence and that kind of thing. We need to know how you've come up with this idea and why you think it needs to be done. You know, what's the evidence base that says this needs to happen? And that can be very localized experience and information, and that's fine. In most cases, that won't be in some national study, you know, and that's fine. But I think, you know, check your grand idea against the reality of young local people's experience. You know, form a working group. Is this what you need most? Is this what you want most? Is it going to work? And you know, it's relevant, and then it goes to, is it going to be attainable? What else? I think, you know, it's quite common, it's quite easy for us to spot when a worker has a really good idea, but they haven't really checked in or worked a lot with young people. So yeah, just always have youth participation and collaborative work at the center of what you do, whether you're going for the 60% or the 40%. Those should be kind of secondary requirements. Really, this needs to be at the center of what happens, because Hay is about and with and by and for young people. And partner, and really partner. Yeah, like Brad said, you know, don't partner, hope that you will partner. We haven't actually contacted them yet, but we think they might help us out. Partner from the get-go. So, you know, lots of people will write their grant application and then contact the partner afterwards once their whole idea is formed. Your idea should be, you know, molded, bashed about by, that's not a very non-violent communication way of saying that, should be nurtured by the influence of many different people. So, you know, make some calls, talk to young people, ring other people who've done it before, ring previous grant recipients, ring Hay partners, to have those conversations to help form the idea, rather than once the idea is finished and then trying to tack them onto the outside of something that you're already down the track with. Because just through those simple conversations, we can say, oh yeah, actually, you know that such and such is already doing that or has done that. And it doesn't mean that you can't do it too, but it means you should call them up too and say, hey, you know how you did this? What happened? How did it go? And they might say, well, it was really hard because of this. This is what I recommend. So partner, we definitely encourage and reward that. And but partner early, and it's always really clear when an idea is genuinely collaborative and has already learnt what once it gets to us. And then of course you go on to learn so much more through the process, which we're going to hear a bit about from the grant recipients in a minute. I'm happy to answer any questions, but those were some of my notes that I wrote down.
Yeah, great. And thank you. I think that a couple of things, you know, the time base is around letting people know. Sometimes it's people will apply for the grant and the work is done in 2 or 3 months, and it's done. It's very targeted. It's very wrapped up. That's totally fine. That's okay. Others, it's developed over a 12-month period, and that's also okay as well. Briar and I, yesterday, we were having a chat about the ways in which you can tell us very clearly that young people, particularly with youth-led grants, that young people are involved in the process and have been involved in the process. I might just remind people to put yourselves on mute. The best way to do that, like if you're a young person and a worker, you can say, as a youth worker who is also a young person in this area, that can be a good thing to do. And like I said, it's very easy to spot for us when people are applying under youth-led, but it's clear that young people have not been involved in the development of the grant application. So it's really important to stress that point to us. Where Jamie was talking about making sure it's obtainable and doing a bit of a needs assessment, a lot of LGAs will have information on their website about a consultation that they've done to develop a youth plan. If you can link to that and use that as part of your evidence base, that's totally fine. The reason we say that is to not reinvent the wheel. If you can say, this program was developed in X area down the road and it's worked in this way, and that's why we know it'll work here, and here's how it'll be easily transferred to our area, that's also totally fine as well. I noticed that there was a question before we move on to the next part and hear from Rochelle, Meg and Rosemary, that people were saying, can you do a subset specifically around age? So if you're only working with, 18 and up or 12 and under, that's totally okay. The subset is fine. It's also okay to only be working with subsets of specific cultures within your community. Totally fine. If you've identified that there is a need amongst a particular community group that's not currently being addressed, and you really specifically want to work with a particular cultural group or a group of young people who have disability, then that is also okay. Just tell us, just be really clear and upfront about that. We think that those sorts of things are about ensuring that no young people are left behind, and sometimes it means we do need to target specific parts of the community. Brian, just before we move on, I just want to check whether I've missed anything or there's anything that you want to jump in here. And then and do you want to sort of just lead us with the other speakers, with Rochelle, Meg and Rosemary?
Totally. Yeah, I think definitely Derm and Jamie are experts who've done this kind of rodeo so many times. I came on just at the end of our grants last year as we were starting to evaluate round 9. So as someone who read a lot of grants, and that was my first introduction to grants, also, please, 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 please proofread your grants. Don't send them off at 4 p.m. on the day, especially don't because they're due at 9 a.m. But yeah, get as many eyes on them as possible. Get young people to read them. If you're working with young people, get, a mate from the council who was helpful to read them. Get a Hey partner to read them. Get your sister, anyone. Just get another pair of eyes on it, because one of my first experiences with a grant in this area was that they said instead of demonstrate, they were gonna demon start, and I was like, that's a bad sign. Yeah, so that's my main thing. And then, yeah, that key phrase, like, as a queer young person myself, or as, as this, or like, we would love to see your expertise. And if you are like a worker, a youth worker, a council worker, an organizational person who is doing a youth-led grant, but sounds very like is clearly coming from an organizational perspective, let us know you're young. It will help us very much in figuring out if you are, if it is a youth-led grant or if you just clicked on the wrong application.
We can probably stop sharing the slides now and move to the
Let's
the
move on
other
to our
presenters.
speakers. I did not allocate a specific order, but I think I had Rochelle down as going first.
Can do.
Yeah, hi.
Hi.
So,
right.
yeah, this is Rochelle from Maroondah, a consistently successful shire or council area. I'm not sure what your specific term is.
Yes, council, yeah.
Yeah, I'll handle it to you.
Cool. I do have a quick little presentation I'll just share with people. Awesome. Oh, actually, you know what? When I do this, it like gets rid of my notes. How does that work? Hang on one sec. Need to figure out how to, like, if anyone has tips on that. I've got notes on another screen, and it wants to like show it on both of my screens. I don't know if anyone knows how to not make it do that.
I know we all live on Zoom at the moment. I have not PowerPointed over Zoom. Any ideas on the floor?
Rochelle, yeah, when you full screen, it's entering into presenter mode.
Okay, yeah.
An option in that mode, like on the three dots or something, to click and exit out of presenter mode and go back.
Sure, okay.
Typical PowerPoint that we were familiar with, if that makes sense. I've only done it like once, so.
All right, I'll see how I go. Otherwise, I'll just swing it without my notes, which is also fine.
Yeah, have a go at either clicking on display settings, that drop down box. If you can,
settings.
The top, top left. Maybe we're seeing
doesn't have me. It has display settings. That's okay. That's all right. No worries. We'll just wing it. Cool. Hey, everyone. So, yes, I am the Youth Programs and Services Coordinator at Maroondah City Council in the Youth and Children's Services team. And thank you for having me to come and have a chat about our experience. So by no means, I'm no expert in this space, and while I've worked on many of the HAY programs, I've probably only done two of the successful applications, but I'll do my best to just share our experience. So yeah, so we have been really fortunate with the HAY grants, and we've received 4 HAY grants in 2015, 16, 17 and 19. We did have an unsuccessful grant. You'll see there's nothing in 2018. That was our unsuccessful grant. But I'm happy to talk through that as well a bit later, because I think there's some key reasons why we weren't successful with that grant. And for us, each grant, we kind of looked at a unique project for each grant. They didn't kind of build on each other. They were all kind of different and unique specifically for our LGA. And we were really kind of specific, and I actually don't know if this was part of the success, but that we wanted to make sure that each of our projects had some sort of sustainability or long-term impact, so that we were really conscious that we didn't want to just get $10,000 and do a thing and then that's done and we kind of move on, that each of these had opportunities for kind of long-term impact as well. So lots of this has already been spoken about, so I'll kind of break it down more with the example of one of our successful grants. But this is kind of the 3 key things that we look at. Again, all things that have already been touched on. So making sure that we have the evidence, which was needed. So we actually didn't apply for a grant for 2020 for that reason, is that we didn't feel like we had enough evidence, and we would have just been throwing something together, and that ties into the lead up to our upcoming grant. Involving young people, obviously it's a no-brainer, I think, and it's definitely been touched on today already. Making sure that you involve young people in all of the process, or as much of it as you possibly can, and then definitely, as Jamie said, like, use your networks, talk to people, get your partners involved, all that kind of stuff. So I'll kind of break down how we did this for one of our particular grants. So this was our most recent successful grant, which is our Queer Voices, which is a project that we ran last year. So I don't remember which round it was, but 2019. So for us, in terms of the consultation with young people, as has already been discussed, we did look at a lot of our local evidence. So we've been really fortunate that over the past kind of 3 years, we've been rolling out a student wellbeing survey across our council area. And this captures the voices of thousands of young people each year. And it was really clear for us from that evidence that we needed to be doing work in this space. And this helped us to link our grant as well to work within schools, because a lot of the evidence was coming out of schools, and it showed that particularly, again, a lot of that didn't necessarily capture our same-sex attracted young people, but it did definitely focus in on our trans and gender diverse young people and students who identified their gender as other or prefer not to say through that process, had significantly lower wellbeing results out of that survey. So that kind of helped us to narrow in, and it's been spoken about as well, like, you know, narrowing in on a particular focus is good and okay as well. So yeah, it helped us to start pulling together the piece of the puzzle. There were kind of lots of things that brought us to this point. So we started with that evidence and noted, okay, well, there's a need, we need to be doing something. The second part of our consultation was, so we don't run an ongoing group in Maroondah. So we didn't necessarily have a captive audience that we could run all of this by with our young people. So we actually just, pre-COVID, can't believe that this used to happen. We took a bunch of young people out for coffee. So young people that we had been working with in different kind of projects, we thought, let's just go and have a chat. Let's find out what's going on for them and what they're looking for and what they need. So we did individual coffee chats with lots of different young people, which was really fun to say that that is my job. But from that process, it was really clear that a really strong thing that was coming out of those chats was that these young people wanted an opportunity to advocate for their peers. And it was a really consistent message. So we thought, okay, this is great. This is a gap, and it's an opportunity that we're not giving our young people. They want to provide the education themselves. So again, this started to help us to form this up. And I guess the third part of our puzzle was that we had an opportunity through another project to kind of give this a bit of a test run. So we worked with one of our local schools who has a standout group in their school, and they were given an opportunity to run some education sessions with a different council area with young people. And through that process, these young people identified that stories were going to be a really powerful tool to spread the message. So through that project, we did a bit of a trial run where 3 of our young people were able to share some of their story with other young people. And we got to see it unfold and witness how powerful that was, and had some really good outcomes just from this kind of one-off event. So it was those 3 kind of pieces of the puzzle, I guess, that helped us to form the project, which was a storytelling project where our young people had the opportunity to share their stories and educate 3 specific kind of cohorts. So again, we worked with some young people around identifying who those cohorts were going to be and who were the most important people that they wanted to target, and that shaped up kind of the project. So from there, yeah, we kind of moved into kind of co-design with our young people. Again, we were fortunate that we had some young people who were already interested in this space, so they could help us drive this. And they, kind of helped us to identify what they'd need, what they'd be looking for, especially because we knew we'd need to engage a storyteller. So what does that look like? How important was it for them that, you know, the storyteller identified as queer themselves, like all of those kinds of things. So just nutting it out. And we did this in a really kind of informal way, I guess. We just, brought people into our youth centre and had some chats and sort of worked through it. And then the next part was finding the partners. So again, totally agree with what Jamie was saying. Find them and find them early. So that was a really important thing for us, that if we wanted our grant to be successful, we needed to make sure we had all the right people on board. So we were really fortunate. We had probably more support letters in the end than what we could submit, which was really lovely. But we engaged a few different storytellers to begin with and did some long conversations with professional storytellers to try and find the right fit for this particular project. And then we also worked with our local schools as well, just to help get them on board for promotion for the people, the young people, to actually take part in the program if we were successful. But also a big part of the project was educating schools. So we made sure that we had a number of our schools on board as well, to say that if we were going to run an event like this, would this be beneficial? Would you turn up? That kind of thing. So yeah, nutting out all that sort of stuff as well. So for us finding the partners, we had a number at the beginning, and then we also found more along the way as well, but that's kind of more program implementation side of things. Cool. And then this kind of stuff, I guess this was a bit of just the process about how I went about writing it. And obviously this is just my way of doing it, but I like to draw everything out. So I created a bit of a map and a bit of a timeline and all of the aims and objectives and that sort of thing. So I guess it was a visual program plan, which I found really useful. And again, our program didn't span the whole year. As Derm said, like, it doesn't need to be a 12-month long program. Ours probably ended up being about 4 months. And we kind of looked at, when we were mapping that out, looked at where the opportunities were as well. So we were really fortunate that our Eastern Regional Libraries were actually, they received a separate grant to do a Pride event. And so they were doing an event called Writing the Rainbow. So it was a really nice kind of partnership there as well, that we could tap into and using things that are already happening in our council area to kind of boost the success of our program. So we partnered up with them as well, and that helped us to identify the timelines, because their timelines were already sort of set. Identifying the clear aims and objectives. I think, going back to our sort of unsuccessful grant application, this is probably one of the things that got really missed. That we submitted something that was probably a bit too broad. It was, well, two things, probably something that had been done before. So again, as Jamie said, be mindful when you're kind of looking at projects that are being done elsewhere. And yeah, I think that was not a great decision by us at that time. But also that there weren't enough clear aims and objectives. I don't think we could really justify exactly what we were going to get out of it. As well as not having enough evidence from young people to support that too. A clear understanding of what success looks like. This one was really important to us for this particular project. We knew that trying to get 200 parents to come to an event about LGBTIQ+ inclusion was probably not really realistic, especially in our area. So we were really clear at the beginning that what we wanted was more of the qualitative data, and we wanted to know that we'd made an impact and created change for the people who attended. So we had to make sure that we, as part of the process, knew exactly how we were going to measure that at each event. So if we're running this particular event, do we have capacity to actually get that information back through that? Because that's what's most important to us. So making sure that we factored that into the actual kind of program and what we were proposing. Budget's pretty self-explanatory, I guess. Having clear considerations. Again, for us, getting the partners on board early was really important for this, because storytellers are not cheap. I don't know if anyone has worked with them before, but we knew that was a really key part of the project. So yeah, making sure we had the partners on board so we knew how much it was going to cost, so that we knew we could actually deliver on what we were proposing was really important. And we got pretty bang on with that one, which was nice. And as well, in writing the grant, capturing the voices of young people within the grant, I think, is a really important one. So not only to say that they were involved in developing the idea, but for this particular grant, we had a lot of direct quotes from our young people, clearly spelling out why this was a need and why it was important. So getting their kind of endorsement throughout the grant as well. So I guess that's kind of the main bits and pieces. I'd also want to say, like, this one that I'm speaking about now is our 4th grant. We'd learnt a lot coming into this one, and we've learnt a lot since as well. So we're still learning and still finding better ways of capturing this. We've actually recently gone through a pretty substantive consultation with our young people this year, and we went through a co-design process as well with young people and 13 other service providers in our area to help us shape up our next Hay grant. And we're actually going to be co-writing the grant with some young people as well, which is something that we haven't done before. We haven't actually co-written one with young people. So yeah, we're still learning, but yeah, I've just talked a lot. That's kind of our experience. So I'm going to stop sharing.
Heck yeah, thank you so much. I was just going to lightly housekeep. I can tell we're going to run a bit over time because we started a bit late, got really excited about grants. So I just want to head up, like give everyone a heads up that that is probably we're going to run a little bit late with our Q&A. But yes, I think there's some questions in the chat, which I think I might bump to Q&A so we can get through our case studies while everyone is like definitely going to be here, if that's okay. I had you next on the Meg on the Meg list, comma Meg. Did you want to?
Meg list is mine. I've got no presentation, so I'm just having a chat.
Yes, go wild.
All right. Hi everyone. So I'm Meg, and I am from the Wellington Shire Council. Wellington is in Gippsland, and we're kind of the third largest LGA in Victoria. So we, after Mildura and East Gippsland, so we cover a really large area of around 11,000 square kilometres. We've got around 44,000 people who live here across 33 different communities, and around 6,000 young people in that space. I'm the youth coordinator, so I'm the only person working in youth in the Shire, which is the same for lots of our shires in regional areas. And when I came into this role, I'm just going to tell you how we came to apply for a Hay grant to start with, because some of the points that have been made so far are really relevant to us. And the first one in applying for the grant was really identifying a need. And what outcome we wanted, what was our desired outcome. So when I came into the role, I kept hearing from different providers and that they had young people coming to them all the time who were saying, I really need some, you know, I really want to find a group of people who are just like me and wanting some social support. And there was nothing. Uniting, one of our service providers, used to run a group called So What for about 4 years. It was really successful. And then the funding shifted and they didn't have capacity to run that group anymore. In the meantime, just prior to us applying for the Hay grant, a young person in our area got sick of bureaucracy and said, stuff it, I'm just going to start a group. So she started an arts collective for young LGBTI people, which was fantastic, but none of us could refer people to that group because there was no safety. There was certainly, you know, there was no police checks, there was nothing, no risk assessments, and it was a real shame. So the Hay grant came up, and I thought, okay, let's see if these agencies and providers will put their kind of a bit of action around their words. And I said, if we apply for a grant to start a group, would you support it by, like, we acknowledge that you don't have you know, your KPIs aren't there to meet the LGBTI youth community, but would you give a worker 3 hours once a month to support a group, to facilitate a group and be part of that partnership? And we spoke to the young person running the Queering Some Space group, and they said yes. So we applied for a grant. The desired outcome was that we would have a group that was sustainable, that would run on into the future and would keep going with some shared ownership. It was really flawed grant application, really, like it was just dreaming in the sky. But we got the grant and we were really excited. We got our MOU written. We had Jamie come down to work with the young people that we'd kind of identified in the beginning to kind of say, what do you want out of this group? And that was really great. We had some group rules. It was great, but it was really flawed because those social groups are so much around relationship, and there was no capacity for young people to build a relationship with a facilitator when they're only in there once a month or once every 6 weeks. So it didn't work. However, the group kept going and we still have a group today. So the 12 months finished and all of the, you know, the partner agencies kind of just somehow found some way to excuse themselves from the MOU. So that was a little bit of a battle. However, we kind of morphed it and we found elders within the LGBTI community, and we've entered into a kind of a mentor-based model where the elder, so we've got queer elders who are volunteers of the council. So we cover liability and we provide any resources that are needed, and they run the group. So it's kind of working. And now we're about to morph again into co-facilitating with a new Headspace satellite service that has started in Wellington, but it'll be still mentor driven. So that was kind of the way that group's come about, and the needs that were identified with the group and with the mentor facilitators last year were what led us to apply for the round 9 grants, yeah, which we were successful again. And that was around the support of the broader community of families and allies, and their educations and storytelling there. So that was really good. But I really wanted to go back and just touch on, so I've already said that I think it's really important for us to be able to identify what, you know, why we want to do something, especially when we've got limited resources, and to remember what capacity we have. I always dream way too big, and what Jamie was saying before about, you know, saying you're going to do X, Y, Z and Z plus Z plus Z, you know, I'm really great at doing that. It just creates stress and it's not necessary. And I think really honing things down and doing them really well is really important. But when we're thinking of capacity and we're thinking of partners and who we've got around to support those things, and that young people obviously are very evident in all of that planning, we need to factor in the capacity to celebrate what we've done, because I can kind of forget that. Like I was looking at for today and I'm thinking, oh gosh, we've been talking about taking photos and we've been talking about doing this for, you know, 2 years, but we just don't kind of get there or get ourselves organised or have time. And I think that it's really important. So, I mean, I'm sure most of you or all of you are much better at that than me, but I think it is really important to celebrate what we do, and to share the story more broadly than the group that we're working in. So we start to build momentum in the community that this is what we're doing, that, you know, these young people are out here and we need to celebrate them. We need to create spaces for them, or whatever our project's for. And the last thing is just to remind you all that Yakvik's there, and they're fantastic, a fantastic resource. And when we're running into trouble or we're getting a bit stressed or we've had an aha moment, you know, they're really easy to just phone up and say, and talk through anything. Yeah, same with Jamie and her crew. There's heaps of people around to help, and also people who've had the grants before. Yeah, I think it's terrific. So that's about it from me, I think.
Thank you. Yeah, like I think Derm and my emails are on the forms, and like mainly email me because I have slightly more time than our rural manager because he's busy rural managing. But yeah, we're always in contact, and the partners are a really good resource. They're all there's a directory of them on the Yakvik website. Okay, I think we're not running too badly behind time. I might grab our next presenter, Rosemary, and I forgot the name of your...
Carla.
Yes, Carla, if you two would like to take over.
Thanks, Briar.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I'm just going to share the screen here too. We've got a bit of a presentation. Can people see that?
Yes, thank you.
Yes, it's coming through clear.
Okay.
Great.
Okay, so out at Hume, just wanting to put together some of our reflections from our 3 grants that we've been successful. So I'm Rosemary, I'm the team leader in youth services. Carla?
Yep, and I'm Participation and Partnerships Officer, so my role actually spans across family, youth and children's services, but I have had, I started out in youth services when I first started at council. So yeah, I guess we're probably in between Maroondah and Wellington. We're an interface council, so we're kind of one of those last metro councils before we become rural. We're a really diverse and fast growing council. We've got a really diverse community. As you can see, we've got like our residents come from 156 different countries and speak over 150 different languages. We're also quite a disadvantaged council, and we have a really, you know, like almost 20% of our population is actually young people. So, you know, that's projected to grow as well because we're a really fast growing council as well. So we've got a lot of young people and we're going to have a lot more young people in the future.
Okay, so we were successful in round 3, 5 and 8. A little bit like how Rochelle mentioned earlier, in between that we had some failed applications as well. Yeah, just generally, our first application was to support a same-sex attracted dance party that was really driven by young people and an experience that young people had out in our area where they wanted to take a same-sex partner with them to a school formal and they were denied that opportunity. So yeah, we put in an application to run our own event out Hume Way. Our second grant application was around awareness raising, and then our third one kind of really continued on with awareness raising with All That Glitters, and that was really more awareness that it was coming from young people and young people's feedback to us that they felt safe in our group, but they didn't feel safe in their community. So we've kind of been lucky that stemming from the Glitter Ball, where we brought together a group of young people who actually planned and delivered that event, they wanted to continue with a social support group. And since that time in 2014, we've supported a social support group for LGBTI young people.
Yeah, and then we've just got the acronym there for GLITTER is gay, lesbian, intersex, trans, together everyone's respected.
I think somebody said it earlier, you know, when starting to think about a Hay grant, we've always really started with the why. So we'd encourage you to do that yourselves. Like, what is the reason that you wanted to, you know, make an application? Why did you want to run a project? So we've always really tried to find what our clear intention is and have, you know, that single focus, but also include young people's voices. Have fun with it. So I kind of think we've always thought that if our vision was clear and we could feel that there was something that young people wanted to do and that they could sense the joy with it and that it was going to make a difference in their lives, then that was your why. So if we have our why, then we can go and do the rest of the work, which would be including seeking out partners. Couple of pictures there. Our second program was the Insight into Diversity, which had trying to give information out to the community about what's all these flags, what are they all about, what do they mean? So that image there is flags in the Sunbury Library. We developed resources. We did a roadshow. We did lots of education in schools, at festivals, and the intention of that project was education and awareness. Yeah, so we started with our why and then we developed the program from that.
And I think too, we originally, we got feedback when we submitted the grant that again, it was actually, I think like Marinda was saying, it was too broad. Like we had so many things that we wanted to achieve in that. And so it was about actually pulling that in to go, what was the intention of this project? And that was really about education in the community, so that those young people felt safe in the community. So when we scaled it down, we were able to actually do a really purposeful and intentional project. And I think that was really helpful. So yeah, I guess in terms of our organisation, we being local government found that it was really easy for us to write a grant, because we're used to writing grants. Councils write grants all the time. Councils give grants out. So we were very au fait with the whole grants process. So I think, you know, for a smaller, maybe, you know, community organisation, you know, if you need assistance with grants writing and it's something that's brand new, you've never done it before, I suggest that you know, seek some assistance with that. Talk to YACVIC, talk to your local government around what's a good grant look like, and don't be scared of it. And I think the other thing too was that as local government, and particularly our youth service, we were au fait with, again, working with young people, youth participation as a model. So there was already a readiness there for us to go, yes, this is something that we really want to do. Again, we had access to a whole lot of resources. We had our own funding. We had staff expertise around working with these particular cohort of young people. We had support and supervision for our staff set up. We also had access to local support and counselling if needed for those young people. So we were really well equipped, I guess, to be able to go, yes, we're ready to apply. And yeah, and again, we were focused really on those local needs of what did those cohort of young people really want to do, and who did they want to be in their community. And we were really well linked with lots of formal networks, youth networks, employment networks, a whole lot of, you know, service providers that were able to, I guess, be there as that support network for our applications as well. And we're also very lucky, and I think it's been said before, but, you know, there's a lot of research, there's a lot of reports. We've got our council plan, we've got a social justice charter, we have youth strategies that we can draw on to really, I guess, back up the, you know, the intention of the project about why we want to do it. So again, if that's, you know, something that maybe your organisation doesn't have, get in touch with your local council and have a look at what their youth strategy or their participation models are, that you can really partner with them. Yeah, so I guess, yeah, in terms of your organisation, you know, you really need that support from management, and you need some leadership that's going to be driving your project, you know, to the long term. Even when you go through the bumps and the humps and the no young people are coming, or, oh my God, this didn't work out the way we wanted it to, you still need to have that one strong driver that's going, this is our intention, this is our focus, we're going to keep going with this. And I guess too, you know, think about your organisational strengths and values and how they're aligned with the criteria, because, you know, if they're not aligned, or they're, you know, there might be something that your organisation goes, oh, we're not really comfortable about that, then, you know, you really need to kind of get that sorted before you apply, because it's not, I guess it's not really fair on those young people to have an organisation that's not going to be fully supported and committed. And have a think about, you know, how many young people are linked with your organisation, and what's the reach that you want to, like, is it just you're going to work with, you know, a small cohort of young people, or did you want to reach further out, and how might you do that? And have a look at, you know, who else is in your community, who else can partner with you. Do you know about your LGBTIQ plus community? If you don't, then where might you go to find that out? Who are your internal allies and champions, you know, the ones that are going to be promoting it across your organisation, across maybe a different sector. You might be like us, we're family, youth and children's services. So, you know, part of my role is that, you know, our youth team has got this amazing program with the Glitter crew. But, you know, how does the rest of the department really support this community? And so now, you know, we're starting to go, well, what about rainbow families? How might we support them? So, you know, I guess it's really understanding, you know, how you might have a broader impact than just your program as well. And I think it's been said before around have your realistic budget. You know, if you don't have a huge budget, then don't apply for a huge thing. Like, just keep it under control. And again, do you have the expertise and I guess support systems in place to be able to work with this cohort of young people?
Something that we're really aware of is speaking up about our organisational, you know, reputation. So like being able to work out who those partners are that you do work with. So in the past, our successful applications have always had letters of support, so like genuine key people that we've worked with. I guess, yeah, being an LGA, we are part of larger youth networks. So we regularly interact with people from community health centres. We work in schools, so we know wellbeing teachers, we know Department of Ed, school nurses. So in the past, we've had letters of support, and we've had partners with, for example, Headspace and from health centres. So kind of, we've always used that to show our genuine reach into the sector, because it's like we've had an understanding that although the grant is to support young people, it's also to, I don't know, I guess, get bang for its buck from the government, that they're you know, reaching further into the community than just our young people, but that our programs will reach potentially into schools or into other areas. Yeah. The other thing, and I think Jamie kind of touched on it earlier as well, is like really considering that that YACVIC as the funding body is really a co-creator of the project as well, and so that there is the partners. We have tapped into partners before, and that whilst we might be applying for a $10,000 project budget, that we are also offering like real in-kind you know, efforts back to that project as well, so that, you know, we're offering a youth worker, we might be offering a facility, we're supervising the project, offering extra staff, we're evaluating the project, so that we're part of that partnership, so that we see it as a partnership that you know, that it's two-way. We have had experiences where our programs have gone a little bit awry, and we've rung people and said we need a bit of an extension. That's always been conversations that we've been, you know, working on together.
Everyone's mentioned this, and we will reiterate that youth participation is key. Having young people's voices that are really, you know, just starting, they are the starting point. And you're supporting it from there. So, you know, where there's opportunity for ideas to be generated by young people, or co-designed, co-delivered with young people, which, you know, all of ours have been. We've always had a group of young people that we mentor that then go on to put on events, or you know, they came up with the idea of, you know, maybe a fold-out thing to explain the flags and that sort of thing. So, you know, hearing their voices and not dismissing it, but going, yes, okay, we will support you with how that rolls out. So look in your application, how you might demonstrate this, you know, is like how you might have done co-design in the past, you know, with young people. And there might be, say, letters from young people. So there's some excerpts there that we had actually our letters of support from not only our community partners with organisations, but we also had letters of support from young people saying, you know, hey, what you've done is great, and we want to take it to the next level. We want to be involved in the next project. You know, you might have some photos of some of the work that you've done, because I think, you know, creating that story, or even, you know, talking about in an attachment, you know, a case study or something like that around what difference it might make. And then, you know, you might actually have some sort of a youth charter, or you might adhere as an organisation to YACVIC's Code of Ethics, or you might have some sort of a, in Hume we have the Hume Youth Commitment, which is where all of the community organisations have signed up a kind of a spirit of cooperation document where we all agree how we're going to work together to support young people. So, you know, if you can demonstrate how you actually are doing youth participation, I think is really important. And then again, I think people have said it before as well, be really clear about your milestones, your measures, what's your evidence base. You know, don't be going off and going, right, we're going to survey, you know, 400 young people at an event or something with a clipboard and ask them 25 questions, when really the intention is that they're there to have fun. So, you know, think about how you're going to evaluate it properly. So you might come up with a much better, more fun way to evaluate, you know, at a big event like that. Think about realistic numbers as well. You know, it's better to make a really solid difference to a smaller amount of young people than, you know, some flimsy kind of information sharing thing to a school assembly where you can't really measure the impact. You know, think about how you're going to tell the story, how you really want to find out, I guess, whether you met what you wanted to create in the first place. We said it, you said it, don't overpromise and underdeliver. Use your expertise. You might have links to some sort of a research team or someone that might be able to actually help you out with, you know, how do we develop some really strong strategic indicators of success. So use that expertise, or, you know, whether that's within your organisation or externally. Your local council might also have some information there to be able to help out. Keep it really simple, you know, some 3 or 4 kind of key things that you want to get out of this project, rather than 25 things that don't, you know, you're never just going to be able to achieve. And be kind to the young people, you know, like they're there on their own journey. They're not science experiments. They're not sort of there to be interrogated about their life with surveys and evaluations and that sort of thing. So, you know, think about, I guess, how you might, show some compassion, I guess, in how you're measuring things as well.
The other thing is to enjoy it. I know that it seems really daunting, but if you can kind of get some, you know, keep the focus on what the joy about your project is. You know, like we've really enjoyed our projects, and we've really believed in the why. So that's kind of like being able to help us, you know, enjoy putting it together because we've believed in our project, and we've had young people that we know that it's going to make a difference with. So, yeah, if you can enjoy it, you know, like see if you can use a professional writing style, but keep it, you know, don't overwrite. I think that I think Brian mentioned earlier, like try and get people to proofread. Like I think in the past we've written things and then we've said, you know what, we could say that in one paragraph. We don't need to overdo it by putting it in a whole page. You know, trying to keep it in plain language, and, you know, think about, you know, could your 10-year-old understand the project? And, you know, if young people are really writing it with you, like try and help it have their voice, so that it sounds like they have, you know, had a say in it.
We might start to bring this to a close so we can go to Q&A. Were there any other key points that you wanted to throw in?
No, we're done. That's it.
Perfect timing.
Yep.
Yeah.
That was fantastic and so incredibly comprehensive from all 3 of you. Thank you. Brian, Jamie and I might start answering any specific questions, and I think Naria has been keeping an eye on some of those questions. This is an opportunity for you to take yourself off mute and jump in, but if Naria, if you want to get it rolling, we'll try and be succinct with our answers.
Yeah, definitely. There were a few questions that were coming in, but I noticed that Brian or someone was usually responding to it, but there's one that I'm looking at right now, just in general with the application process. I know Thomas responded to it, but maybe just out loud. Andrew asked, can you save your progress and return later? Or is it something that you have to do in one shot? What are your recommendations in the logistics of applying?
It is a Word doc. In the past, we had a Google form. Apparently, it was very annoying because you had to fill it out all at once. It got a lot of feedback that was not working. So it's now .docx. So you can just work on it whenever and then just email it into us. Yeah.
Any other questions, Nuria, or any of you who are joining us? This is your chance to jump on in.
There was one I know I missed because it was for a specific project. I think it was for Maroondah from Winnie early on. Was there a post-program survey to measure the impact of the project on the target group?
Yes, good question. There were many. Yeah, so we had kind of a few different components, 3 kind of main education-based events, and then one was a bit of a showcase event. So we measured it all the different phases. So we would look at, you know, confidence in storytelling before and after the storytelling training that our young people were involved in. We had surveys after our parent session, surveys after our school session, plus follow-up work with our schools as well about whether they're actually implementing change in their schools. And we kind of looked at a bit of an action plan actually as part of our evaluation. We wanted to see whether what we were doing was actually going to translate into action from these target groups. So we involved a bit of an action plan that all the participants kind of filled out as part of these workshops. And we all had copies of all of those. So we were able to actually touch base with all the organisations and schools that participated to look into that further as well to help with the measurement, which is a bit of an ongoing thing. So yes, lots of surveys. And of course with the young people as well, we did pre and post just for their experience. Yeah.
Another way of doing things can be to do a focus group. So, and sit down with people and actually ask the young people the questions, and then you record their answers. Sometimes surveys can be a little bit overwhelming for some young people, and it feels like you're chasing them to do it. Invite them in, feed them, ask them the questions, record what they say. Yeah. Any other questions?
There was a question that's come in a few times now, but do you have to be part of the council or LGA to apply? And also just more case studies on people that have applied that aren't councils or LGAs, where to find that?
So the previous, on the website, we've got a list of previous grants. You can go back through the year and see what has been funded because we do publish that. So you can always go and check that out and follow up with those organisations or individuals because some people are a collection of people from a local community and they have a brilliant idea for things to do. And because they're not incorporated, they get an auspice. And an auspice organisation is simply an organisation that has an incorporated status to be able to receive the funds in their bank account on your behalf, and then to be able to work with you to ensure that those funds are being spent the way that you want them to be spent. If you're scratching around for an auspice, we can assist you with that, and we have in the past with people where they've said, oh, I've got this great idea, but you know, I'm in Ballarat and I don't know anybody else in Ballarat. We've assisted with that in the past. You don't have to be part of a council or a local government organisation to apply. We've had many different organisations, including religious organisations, small NGOs, large health organisations, small health organisations, neighbourhood houses. There's a whole host of agencies that have applied in the past. Schools have applied in the past and been successful. So you don't have to be a part of a council, but sometimes it's really good to link in with your local council because that's where the access to the youth workers are and information's like strategic plan or access to other young people in your area. But partnerships are encouraged, yeah.
Yeah, we've been council heavy because councils are just really good at getting grants. They, as you can see, are like lots of expertise, and often a lot of the like just the facilities or the like the capacity in their team to do things like that. So when I was looking at who consistently gets grants, I was like, wow, these are the standouts. So yeah, I think the big thing is, if some of this is intimidating, do connect in with your councils. They are generally staffed with very lovely people who know a lot, but they don't always have the like staff or the capacity to actually do those great ideas. So they will be very happy to help you generally.
I'd also jump in, sorry, Thomas from Yakba here. One of our recipients last year was a young person in a regional area who connected with his local learning and employment network, the local lens, to connect with other older transgender diverse members of the community, and it was about running workshops. So that was a young person who had an idea, and he wanted to find they wanted to find support for the grant, and that's how an auspice could work. So if you're a young person who's not necessarily connected already to an organization, that's how you would apply for a youth-led grant.
There were some other questions I noticed. We have one from Estelle on how we treat grant applications that touch on social taboos, but are nevertheless important and occurring, say, for example, on sex work within the LGBTIQA+ community. Good question.
It would come down to the type of work that you want to do and the activities around that program. Yakvik is not afraid of dealing with taboo subjects. And if we're hearing from people in regards to that taboo subject being an element or a dynamic within their community that they think this grant could help resolve some issues or bring some greater understanding to, or address things like reducing stigma and discrimination, we're absolutely up for that. And, you know, if we feel, and occasionally the grants selection committee do feel, want a bit more information on something, we can always phone you or contact you and get that information to further support the application. But so far, there hasn't been anything that's been knocked back because it was too hot to handle, so to speak. And we've never had the Minister's Office, because as I've said in the beginning, we administer the grants on behalf of and in partnership with the Victorian Government. We've never had the Victorian Government say, there's no way we can fund that. Yeah, so taboo is totally fine for us.
I think
that answers that.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of anything to do with our community can be considered too hot to handle. So we can't start drawing the line and being like this far and no further. It's all kind of, we're gonna look at it all. I saw also we had a question on what is our standout example of a non-event project that's been conducted in the past.
We've got some favourites. I don't know that I'd want to sort of say that there's a standout. Some of more recent years, a couple of the grants have used video and produced either films or animations to talk about a message. One of them was around sexual health and bodies. One of them was around a trans person going through a process of coming out. So they're obviously, I mean, they're fresh, so we're thinking of them. But every year there has always been a couple of, you know, really standout pieces of work, and usually it's involved where it's really made an impact for young people. And people have come back going, we've never been able to have a conversation about this in the past, and now we have. And for us, that's a fantastic outcome. And for the young people in that area, that's a fantastic outcome. Might not be, you know, like a parade down the main street, but that's okay. Sometimes the biggest inroads start with just being able to have a conversation. Yeah. So every year there are things that, you know, end up becoming our favourites. And, you know, I don't want to sort of, you know, poison the well, so to speak, by naming anybody at this point. Yeah.
They're all on the website though, so if you want to go have a look. But yeah, there's like been a lot of really cool grants that have run in the past. Like, we don't fund anything we don't think is cool, or we don't think is you know, a good idea. But yeah, there's been a lot of very diverse things. I think I was thinking before when we were talking about like community kind of subsections, there was a long time ago a grant for helping people with intellectual disabilities like better understand queer identities, because there was an identified gap where like those communities don't generally get to talk to or about each other. And so it was like an explainer in plain English. That is super cool, but also like not an event. So yeah, a lot of range.
A lot of range. There was a guide for teenagers who are LGBTIQA+, who are living with cancer. So a very niche area, but an incredibly important resource. And it ended up becoming one in a series of resources. And, you know, that's for that young person that's in that experience, that resource may be the thing that makes all the difference, where they say, I'm being recognised. Somebody actually knows I'm here. They're talking to me. So that's been great. I want to start to wind us up. I'm open to the last couple of questions, but I just thought, Naria, there were 3 slides in there at the end that sort of give people an idea of who the Hey Partners are. Again, this is all on the website, but we might just, this is the list of who the Hey Partners are. And again, I would say if you go to www.yakvic.org.au, you can get all the information that you need, and just follow the links to Hey Partners. If we haven't answered your question, you can jump in now, and we will try to do a summary of these and respond to anybody in particular, because we do have a look at the comments after a session like this. And if we don't feel we've answered something, we can get back to you, or you can reach out and contact either Briar or myself. More than happy, any YAKVIC staff member is more than happy to answer questions about this. We just have it as a daily set of activities.
Yeah, yes.
Yeah. So unless there's any other final questions, this has been really fantastic. And the reason we did this is because of feedback, again, from community, from youth workers and from young people over a period of time. And last year, Briar and I were like, wouldn't it be great to do this? So we've started it. If you've got feedback in regards to how these sort of events or this particular event could be improved or made better, please drop us a line and let us know. And next time we do this, we'll do an anonymous evaluation for you as well. If there's nothing else...
We've got questions. Sorry, Derm.
Oh, okay.
Yes, we've got very reasonable from Feifei. Is there a project delivery period?
Normally we ask for projects to be delivered within a 12-month time frame. So from start to end, we like things to be wrapped up in 12 months, but we are also flexible. So this year, as an example, COVID's impacted people greatly. So we've extended out by 6 months, and we'll be working with people to ensure that they are able to deliver or adjust. People from time to time will contact us and say, look, we hope that this would happen, but there's been a drought, or there's been a flood, or there's been a fire. We totally get that. And we're more than happy to work with communities in ways that actually see the end result rather than hurrying you along to some artificial timeline so that we can tick a box. Yeah, I hope that answers your question, Faye.
There's also a very pressing from, I can't remember if it's Megan or Megan. What is a hay partner?
So the hay partners are, there's 16 separate organisations that are all funded through the Department of Health and Human Services through mental health program funding to work with LGBTIQA+ young people and or families to support them in various ways. Some of them are very place-based. So there might be Bendigo, Ballarat, Gippsland Lakes, as an example, Wodonga. I could probably go through them all, but I won't. Or some of them are statewide services, such as Yakvik, Rainbow Network, -18, Zoe Bell Gender Collective. Some are very specific cohorts. Zoe Bell Gender Collective working with trans and gender diverse young people. And also there's PDGC, Parents of Gender Diverse Children. So again, a specific cohort. And that's what the Hay Partners are. We come together and meet in a community of practice, usually 4 or 5 times a year, and support each other's work and share information related to that work.
And yeah, I think we've got a few comments, one from Drew saying it would be nice if we had kind of more links and photos and stuff of previous grant recipients. As a comms person, that is very much on my mind. Some things are missing in our records because we've been running so long, but definitely, hopefully in the future, we'll have more like artifacts from some of these really cool events. We might have specific things in the bank if there's anything specific you want to chase up. Andrew was saying that he would love a verbal presentation pitch in the future. Is that something we might do? Yeah.
Yep. We could do the 4 questions or the key question criteria as either a video or verbal pitch. That would be fine. Yeah.
Yeah. If you have anything specific, contact us, especially if it's an access requirement. I know sometimes it's not possible to fill out a form. And then a last one from Faye, for people who don't identify themselves yet as part of the LGBTQIA+ community, but are exploring, do they still count? I would say yes.
Again, it depends on the topic, or if you're talking about developing a set of activities that are targeting people who are not clear or not defined or not out about their identity, or as you say, exploring what that means. Yes, that fits within the criteria. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. I think that might be all our questions. Heck yeah.
Thank you so much to all of our presenters, particularly to Jamie, to Meg, to Rosemary, and to Rochelle and Carla. That was fantastic. Thank you so much for supporting Hay and also for making workshops like this so much more accessible and informative by the work that you're doing. Yeah. Please get in contact with Briar and I. Otherwise, adios, stay safe. We'll see you on the other side.
Thank you, everyone. Email us if you have any questions, and we'll make a recording available as soon as we can get it captioned. Okay. See you. And meeting for all.